Welcome to our Jazz Evensong at Brentwood pandemic shutdown version of our jazz services. We're online. We post every Wednesday morning with the help of Ken Burke and Burkeville Productions to our Facebook page. So Jazz Evensong at Brentwood on Facebook. And we are delighted that you've chosen to take a few moments to view this service and join in the service with us. The slide just preceding this was an acknowledgement, our land acknowledgement. We do that at our Sunday morning services, and we also do it at Jazz Evensong when we're live and face-to-face at Brentwood, usually at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night. But it's an expression of respect and gratitude for the fact that the Brentwood buildings sit on the traditional and unceded territories. Out here in British Columbia, the First Nations lands are unceded. So the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And we recognize that we are kin with them in cultivating and caring for the creation. And so the image, the painting, is one of Canada's most famous Indigenous murals in Ottawa, done by Daphne Ojig, a Anishinaabe artist. And it's called The Indian in Transition. And her explanation of it is that it really is an attempt to capture the ways in which Indigenous peoples are being empowered, often against great resistance, by the joys and sorrows and resilience and sort of spirit of survival and spirit of contribution to the well-being of the whole of creation that's there with her peoples during this time of transition. It was done in 78, so the language is, we use the different language these days to talk about this stuff, but it's important to us at Brentwood as we work with other Christians and other peoples around the world, really, to repair and restore our relationships with Indigenous people. So that's important to us to do. There are two groups, one of whom if you've watched Jazz Evensong online before, you will recognize Tom Reynolds, Paul Rushka on bass, and Kristian Braathen on drums. They'll be the last group playing one of Tom's original compositions called Nostalgia. The first two songs are played by the Jason Couto trio. Jason Couto is on Hammond organ, Dave Say is on sax, and Duran Ritz is on drums. And the first piece they're going to play is a piece written by a fellow by the name of Bobby Hebb. And I've loved digging into the history of these songs. Hebb wrote this song in 1963, and it was written 48 hours after the assassination of President John Kennedy. It was also written 48 hours after his brother, Harold, who he'd been singing with since he was 3 years old, after Harold was stabbed to death outside a Nashville nightclub. So it's a song written in the midst of deep personal and national tragedy. It's a lament. But it's a lament because it points to and remembers and affirms the presence of happier times that he enjoyed with his brother. And so there's Jason and the trio do a instrumental version of it. But there were 2 or 3 lines in the lyrics that really struck me when I was looking into it. Thank you for the truth you let me see. My life was torn like wind-blown sand, and a rock was formed when you held my hand. And so that sense in the midst of tragedy and in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of fear, a hand reaches out and takes ours. It may be the hand of a brother. It may be the hand of a lover. It may be the hand of God. It may be all three in one. And so, but through all of that is this urge to write music, to write a song, and to say, I'm going to live through this. So let's listen to Sonny with all of that in mind. The next piece that Jason and the trio are going to play for us is Corcovado. Now, if you've been looking at the previous Jazz Evensongs online, you'll remember that Maya Ray and Miles Black did a version of this song, and we've got another one in the can from Cecile La Rochelle. And so it was an interesting kind of act of providence that these three different versions of Corcovado showed up in the pieces that Ken Burke had recorded. And so it's been interesting digging into it more deeply. Now, Corcovado is many of you will know, is a park in Rio de Janeiro, and at the top of that park is that huge statue with Jesus' arms outreached, called Christ the Redeemer. And so the lines, and again, Jason and the trio do an instrumental version of this, but the lines in the song that caught me this time that I was looking them over was, "You're lost and you're lonely, your life is only a bitter, tragic joke. But then I found with you, my love, the meaning of existence." Lost and lonely, bitter, tragic joke. A lot of people feel that way about their lives these days. And yet, again, through this wonderful music, the reflection that arises out of this wonderful music, there's this sense of being found, of finding meaning in existence. And whoever that love may be that's referred to in the song, we think that it's an expression of the forgiving and reconciling love of God, whether the person expressing that love or extending that love or sharing that love is aware of it or not. And in this particular park, with that huge statue, all of this happens in and under the outstretched arms of God's forgiving and reconciling love in Jesus Christ. It's a powerful, powerful image. Reminded me when I was thinking of this, of that Christmas carol written by Phillips Brooks, "O Little Town of Bethlehem," where that wonderful line, "The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight." The hopes and fears of all the years are kind of gathered together in those loving arms. Let's listen to Jason and the trio play Corcovado. for our final song tonight, we're going to go back to that concert that Ken recorded in May of 2019 when Tom Reynolds was out to work with some of us on a jazz and spirituality consultation. I think, as you remember, if you watched earlier versions of Jazz Evensong online, Tom teaches theology at Emmanuel College in Toronto. He's a very accomplished jazz pianist. And so he's been working with us on this project of digging more deeply into where we find God at work in the jazz community, in jazz as an art form, an art community, a community of expression. And so this song is called Nostalgia. It's one of Tom's original compositions. And I was asking him, so what did you have in mind when you composed this? His initial response was, well, I'm curious to see what you find in it. So I'll say something about that. But then he gave in a little bit. And he talked about it as a very kind of reflective piece. A piece, and you'll hear this, it's wonderfully woven into the piece, this kind of reflective longing for a past that lingers in its, Tom used the language, its fullness and its goodness. And I like that way of looking at the past. I mean, there's so many things in our past that we just kind of want to leave behind with good cause. There's an old tradition, or there's an old phrase within the Christian tradition in worship after the prayer of confession, part of the service called the assurance of pardon. And there's an old prayer that says something to the effect of, the past is dead and gone, everything is fresh and new, thanks be to God. And I think there's a powerful reason for that, and it's an important insight to hold. But there are in the lives of all of us as treasures in earthen vessels, which is the way St. Paul talked about human beings in the Corinthian correspondence. But there are pieces in our past that are worth remembering, worth being nostalgic about, where that fullness and goodness of God's love is very much evident. And so this is a song that opens us up to those times, those moments, those influences in our past. And they open us up to a new future, to a different future, to more in our future. So that somehow the past graces that God has given us continue to shape us and form us and become future blessings. And to see that flow in our lives, I think, is important. And I, for one, and I hope you do the same, find that wonderfully expressed in this composition by Tom Reynolds called Nostalgia. So here's Tom piano, Paul Rushka on bass, Kristian Braathen on drums with Nostalgia. Thank you again for being with us for this version of Jazz Evensong Online from Brentwood Presbyterian Church. To Jason de Couto, Dave Say, Duran Ritz, we give our heartfelt and soulfelt thanks, along with Tom Reynolds and Paul Rushka and Kristian Braathen. So thanks so much for making this service so special to all of us. And thank you especially for being here, joining us, even though it's at a distance. We trust that this time together has been as much a blessing to you as knowing that you are watching it with us, participating in it with us, has been a blessing to us. We do this, post these every Wednesday morning on our Facebook page, Jazz Evensong at Brentwood on Facebook. So please come and join us again. And we would love it if you shared this service with your friends. That's a great way of us getting known and us nourishing souls to flourish in the grace of Jesus Christ, which is what we're all about here at Brentwood Presbyterian Church. We worship on Sunday morning on Zoom live at 10 o'clock. And so if you go to the Brentwood the Brentwood website, not the Facebook page, the Brentwood website, brentwoodpc.ca. At the top of it, you'll always find a link to hook up with us on Sunday morning, and you're more than welcome to join us for that service as well. Let's close in prayer. After generations of pursuing us, dear Lord, with your forgiving and reconciling love, we seem to remain as resilient and rebellious as ever. Generation after generation, we have treated each other and your creation with a disdain that generates destruction. All you have to do is remind us of how we have misrepresented you to our indigenous brothers and sisters on this land. But you remained with them, and you remain with us, working in ways that we didn't notice, working in ways that we really don't understand. But we find in jazz one of the dynamics where you can find us. It is one of those communities where you are known and expressed. It may not be in language that's familiar to many of your European settler followers. It may not be language that's familiar to many who know nothing of you or who have rejected misrepresentations of you. But jazz is a form of expression that can speak to all of us if we have the ears to listen. And so give us those ears, dear friend, with melodies, harmonies, and rhythms that reach deep within our souls. Reconcile us with you and with each other. Restore us to the image of you that is in us, the image of you that intended, the image you intended to sow within us. Help us grow into that image. And as we go forth from this time together, even in our physical distancing, guide us into your justice, into your kindness, and into your humility. And help us hear afresh the rich meaning of this ancient benediction. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord smile upon you. And the Lord meet you face to face and give you peace. Amen.